motivation. We hunt and we hungry, we salivating, turning nothing to something and celebrating. Markets changing, recalibrating. The first to get acclimated is the first to stack the payments, but you need to act with patience. But be careful waiting, cause this opportunity won't last forever before it is evaporated. So if you wanna flip some houses, hit me up to make a plan. Your flip deserves the upper hand.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Raising the Flipping Bar. I'm your host, Derek Marlin, and we've got some really timely content, and I think something that's going to be really unique to you guys. We are really diving into the Alex Hormozi and his $100 million models overall business plan. And I think the way that I'd like to start this show is, okay, so if I gave you an option of working on something literally all day, every day, and I think that he probably worked on it 10 to 16 hours a day, for 5 years straight, would you do that? Having a good sense that the payoff is making $100 million or more in 1 week. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today's episode on Raising the Flipping Bar. Let me set the stage for today's episode with kind of how this came about. I'm really excited for this episode because it's one of those subsets. Obviously we're talking a ton about real estate investing, but we like to focus, 20 to 25% of the show's overall content within a year about business strategy and about personal development. So this is going to go deep and really deep on the business strategy side of things. So this really still will hit for all real estate investors, all real estate agents, contractors, and really any entrepreneur that wants to help drive their bottom line and drive their business. And we're going to go deep into the content of one of my favorite authors, the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Hormozi. I've got all my books around me, and we're going to, really thumb through a lot of these today. We'll show you guys what's going on. I can honestly say there's no other person out there that I have spent 3 different Saturdays in the morning, and it's about a 3-hour time block where I've given up time with my family, time with sports, time with work. Even though it's a weekend, I'm still working on weekends on certain things, than this guy's content. And it was well worth every single penny at all 3 of his book launches. The other thing is just thinking about it from a pure monetary perspective. There's no one that I know of, and I've done a ton of research, that can essentially make several $million the couple weeks leading up to the launch of his book, and then make $100 million. And that's probably a conservative estimate within a 1-week period of launching this $100 million playbook and this $100 million book right here. So it's just absolutely insane. I kind of want to dive in, and I want you to think of this framework through the eyes of, I think Alex Hormozi is today's modern day Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and the next Berkshire Hathaway 2.0, but in a very different manner. So again, we're going to take this very high level business consulting, business strategy playbook, and then run it through the lens of real estate investing. I think to put some context behind this, I'm sure people are probably saying, well, who the hell is Alex Hormozi? Again, I've consumed pretty much all of his content over the last several years, and it's been a huge way to help work on the business versus doing day-to-day and in the business. But he's built, scaled, and I think most importantly also sold multiple companies. He's the co-founder of acquisition.com along with his wife, Layla. And in acquisition.com, again, this is all my understanding and everything that I'm getting from his content, is that it is a holding company, and it's a very diverse set of businesses that he owns. Probably some of them a little bit smaller stake and some of them a much larger stake. But again, think Berkshire Hathaway. A lot of people don't know this, but the late Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett own a huge stake in Coca-Cola. They own a huge stake in Geico Insurance. They own just massive stakes in, let's maybe think of it from a real estate perspective, Johns Manville Siding. They are a holding company, a conglomerate of all these other different companies. And that's why Berkshire Hathaway stock is worth, over $400,000 per share right now. So this guy, Alex Hormozi, is really kind of, in my opinion, the 2.0 genesis of what's going on. He and his wife, again, Layla, have built this world-class organization literally in about a 5-year period. And if you listen to his content, you'll hear, this is, he kind of says it, and a lot of people say it, they are a 5-year success overnight story, or a 10-year success overnight story, or some people a 20-year success overnight story. And the takeaway is that people are working for 5, 10, 15, 20 years before people say, oh, they kind of quote unquote make it big. But for him, I really feel like he's done it in a very accelerated time period. And those guys, they have to have at least a 9-figure net worth. Because if you do see him online, he is not spending money on fancy clothes. The dude wears his acquisition.com hat. He wears his workout tank top. He used to wear Crocs. He wears, a flannel or whatever. So again, the dude's not spending money on his clothing, which I think is, pretty cool because it's authentic to exactly who he is. but he's obviously spending money on other things, and one of which is buying businesses. The other thing is that he's, again, a major author of 3 different books. We're going to talk about these books. The most recent one, the $100 million Money Models, is something that I just got. So I haven't even read this myself. Just kind of took the plunge on this last book, but I've read $100 million offers and putting that into our business, and then also $100 million leads. So again, it's kind of old school. I've got actually kids in college right now. And this semester, I was talking to our son, and he hasn't even purchased one textbook. Really, everything is online. So for Hormozi to do this, in my opinion, kind of like old school with binders, when I was setting up this binder, I felt like it was my old school Trapper Keeper for back in the day. So that'll date me. Half the audience will probably say, what the hell is a Trapper Keeper? And the other half the audience will hopefully get a smile out of this. But as we look into this, and kind of a sneak peek for today's episode, is the other thing that he's doing is he's invested a ton in the school community. And it's a community of online creators, entrepreneurs, and makers in all various forms of any type of business. And we're actually, again, kind of like spoiler alert and sneak peek, we're launching the Elevation School community. It's going to be called the Elevation Investor Alliance, so that we can give back and provide tons of content to people not only in Colorado, but across the world and across the globe. So he's taken a big stake in that. And it's stuff that we're using day to day in our business, not only to internally train our team, but also to again, build that community for you guys out there, you investors, agents, and entrepreneurs. The other thing is, my wife always jokes that he's my man crush. And I wouldn't say it that way. I kind of found another crazy fact is I'm obviously very impressed with the business that he's built and the accessibility to, truly kind of timely business information. Again, this is coming from a guy who's got his MBA and is now paying for college for kids. We're really scrutinizing like what's really worth it for our kids coming up. And I would say it this way, instead of man crush, I would say that he's my brother. And I say that kind of like tongue in cheek, but I found out that we're actually a member of the same national fraternity, but he's obviously just way smarter. He's younger and a lot more jacked than I am. So Alex, shout out, man. I'm trying to get there in my old age. And the other thing is there's a very slight distinction in that he went to Vanderbilt, which is probably slightly rated a little higher than Montana State University, where I went to college for my undergrad. They do call it the Harvard of the West, but I definitely think he probably has a little bit better education. But again, we're so close to being the same person. It's not even funny. But in all seriousness, let's kind of jump into, again, how can you use the information in these books? And I think the overall business model to, again, work on the business as a business owner, even though we're hustling as maybe a solopreneur or an individual real estate investor or a real estate investor, a real estate investor and also a real estate agent. So let's pull the curtain back on this stuff right now for you guys. What I like about Hormozi's content is that he actually uses it as a case study so that the stuff that he's teaching you and showing you that it works in everyday life is the way that he's already launching these books. And so I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek of the latest one, this $100 million money models, and then this playbook that I actually took the plunge and ordered. Is I sat through a 3-hour webinar, great content on the webinar. Again, Saturday morning, missing the Gators play football. Luckily, my kids are older, so I wasn't missing any kids sports. Put aside 3 hours to do that. Within a 3-hour time period, he set a Guinness Book of World Record and sold 2.7 million books in 24 hours. And these books, this last book, again, I'll kind of thumb through this. You guys stay with me. Probably better to watch this episode than listen. But this $100 million money models, a little bit of a tongue twister. They're $30 a pop. So you do the math between that first day and then some sales after the fact when people were rewatching it. He sold 3.8 million books in, let's call it, a week. And that's a Guinness Book of World Records for nonfiction. I'm sure probably maybe Twilight beat that, but I guarantee you Twilight didn't make over $100 million that went probably right in their pocket because their net profit is probably just off the chain. I also figured out that I took the plunge on the consulting side of things. So we're a part of his consulting program. And from that, probably made another $50 million. And I think that's probably conservative because people are paying, several $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars for this business coaching and this business consulting. And it's something that we're doing too. So the reason why I took the plunge on the playbook, and you can kind of see, again, I'll just open this playbook up just a little bit, but there's 13 different manuals. And again, I'm a sucker at heart for you guys watching. There's, the little X's and O's, as I call it, from a football perspective of my old football days coming back to life, that's really how we try to run Elevation as a company, as a playbook. So the reason we are doing this is that you get access to their acquisition.com AI tool. So again, you can kind of think of things of like, well, how would Alex Hormozi do it? You can run that through your business. I love these 13 playbooks. Again, I just got this, so we're just starting to go through this and how can we use this in our day-to-day business. The other cool thing is obviously what I'm doing right now, and that is promoting on our podcast and on all of our media outlets and social avenues, is because of spending essentially $6,000 on this consulting program. Again, kind of a genius move. He did it in the form of, I get 200 of these books and I can give these books away and send these to clients. And so I want to kind of give the first plug and the first offer that for the first 5 folks that get in touch with me, either DM us, comment in the YouTube comment section, or you can email us at info@elevationinvest.com, and we're going to give away 5 of these books. Because again, this is like putting business knowledge in the hands of everyday people from all walks of life, which I think is super important. Second thing is we're going to be starting up kind of a Hormozi, if you will, mastermind and business strategy group. So I really want to figure out, obviously, best case scenarios. Are there other real estate investors? Are there other real estate agents or people in the real estate world, think mortgage, think insurance, whatever, that are using this type of model that we can all get together and hopefully drive business between one another? And a lot of stuff is high level. You know, I consider myself like mildly intelligent. And there's times that I got to go back and reread stuff and say, man, how the hell am I going to apply this to my business? So if we can all get together, again, reach out to me, shoot me an email, put your comments, DM us, whatever, how we can get in touch with you guys. But the other thing is that I really want to kind of look at how do we go deeper with this content, and then again, loop it back to, to real estate investing and to making it a positive experience for everybody here listening to today's episode. I'm going to give you 3 focus areas, which again, I think translate directly to real estate investing. And the first one, let's just talk about the money part of it. And the first one is called price anchoring. What I want you to think about is when they were selling this $100 million playbook, they had, I know they had very legitimate metrics of what individual clients were paying, which they started out kind of at the top of the food chain saying, hey, people have done this individual consulting and they've paid $135,000 for what you're going to get. So again, you automatically anchor to a really high price. And then they keep kind of slowly drilling down saying, yes, you're still getting this value, but you don't have to pay that price. And then he kind of came all the way down to a $6,000 price point. So the way that I kind of equate this is a couple different ways. When you're working with sellers, you don't want to come out of the gate and talk just about the price of what your offer might be. It's like solve the various pain points and the various value propositions to them so that the price becomes not only lower on the food chain of importance, but almost like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're actually offering me this much money and still giving me all these other value points. So I think that's super important. And then if you think of it from an agent perspective, again, don't come out of the gate and just say, oh, our listing price is 3% or 2% or whatever commission you're charging. Deliver that value, anchor them to the value. And again, it should be a no-brainer for that specific price or commission that they're willing to pay. So let's talk about, I think, another key point that you can take away from all of his different content, and that's from the purple book, and that's $100 million offers. And what this is the premise of this one is give people an offer so good that they are absolutely insane for turning you down. And so again, whether it's value proposition of you being a real estate agent, whether that's the cash offer that we're providing, we really try to lean into this from an education standpoint. If you think about, okay, if you're going to, hire us as a consultant, if I can save you a ton of time and that puts a bunch of money back in your pocket, I can save you interest because we're rapidly going through a project a lot faster. I can do the project for cheaper from a contracting perspective because we have these relationships. And then I can help you avoid mistakes, either from A, let's say overpricing a property, B, over improving. Like you can really stack up, let's call it $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of value. But if our consulting fee is, let's say $15,000, for example, I really want it to be a no-brainer and a win-win. So how do you translate that to your individual businesses? I think that's super, super key. So again, it's like, what is the offer that's so good people can't refuse it? And the other thing that I would look at is choosing 1 or 2 routes of success for how you want to model your business. And so what I did is I used they call it the ACQ for like acquisition, ACQ AI, and it's his own proprietary AI system. And so I said, give us and give our audience the top ways that within real estate investing, you can tee yourself up for success. And it just, again, spit it out through his brain, which was the specific vertical, which we'll talk about in a second, or style of business that we can do, profit margins, how much capital do you have to contribute to the business, and then some pitfalls. So what I want to do is, this is maybe leaning towards people that are either a little earlier on in their journey in real estate investing, or if you're at that inflection point or that pivot point and you're like, man, I'm doing too many things. Maybe you kind of need to niche down. So we'll go through the list. The first one is obviously wholesaling. And that is where you are tying properties up under contract. You're using a lower amount of capital. You're finding then the end buyer like me, the investor who's going to buy that property for you. And you make, you're the middle person. You make a spread, or you make a profit margin in between of finding good deals and selling good deals for people. The great thing is it's a little bit lower capital. Obviously, you got to bust your ass and work really hard to get these deals under contract. You can do it a lot quicker, but it is a little bit lower profit margin per deal. And you're going to have to potentially spend some more money in marketing to get the sellers in the door. So you've got wholesaling as the first route. Second one is, they spit it out as fix and flip. We like to call it property redevelopment, but that's obviously where you're buying properties that usually definitely need some love and need some work. You're fixing them up, you're reselling them, and you're keeping the profit on the back end. So they kind of classify that as a medium amount of capital that's needed to be used, which I would kind of agree with that. Meaning depending upon whether you're borrowing hard money or whether you're funding it yourself, you're talking $50,000 to probably $250,000 to get most deals done. It's a longer risk, meaning it's taking a longer amount of time for you to get your money back. So they kind of classify it in the medium risk profile. Obviously, you should have larger margins. If you're going to make $10,000 to $20,000 on a wholesale fee, for kind of your standard deal, you should be making hopefully $40,000 to $100,000 on your flips, because there's more time and there's more risk. Kind of going, I'm not going to say down the food chain, but kind of continuing along, are rental properties. With that one, obviously, you're building long-term wealth. You're tying up capital for a little bit longer period of time, whether you want to hold the property for 1, 2, 3 years or hold it in perpetuity for 30 years and pay it off. You got to obviously use quite a bit more capital for your down payments, but you've got compounding that happens and you've got appreciation that happens. So it's a great way for you to build residual income on a year-to-year basis. One of the things that they put as these results is called the BRRRR method. And that is where you're buying the property, you're renovating it, you're rehabbing it, and you're refinancing it. And then they say, kind of rinse and repeat. I don't love that right now, especially in Denver, because we're still having to purchase so high from a purchase price perspective. Rents are topping out. Back in the day, you were able to buy it at a lower price, fix it up, and create that equity so that you didn't have to put a lot of money back in the deal. Nowadays, I haven't heard of anybody who's able to keep a BRRRR and not at least leave 30% in the deal. So again, not a bad strategy, but I don't see it being very successful in today's market right now. That's more of a Midwest market and a higher cash flowing market that you can do those in. So again, kind of rental / BRRRR, I'm lumping those into one bucket. The next one is lending, being a private money lender, being a hard money lender, or also having notes. Definitely much more capital intensive. You've got to obviously loan out the whole dollar amount for people to flip their properties, or at least normally between 80 and 90%, and the investor brings the rest to the table. The cool thing about this is obviously much, much lower effort. You've got to have good skills when it comes to underwriting. And that means, can you analyze a deal? Because if everything goes to hell in a handbasket and you got to take that over, you got to know that you've lent on a good asset. So again, there's kind of pros and cons there. The next one that they list is a syndication or a fund. And that's something that we've also done too. So that's where you're going out and you're raising capital from other investors. And then you're using that as a down payment on a larger commercial asset. So we did that in the apartment game, where we invested money to buy apartments, fix them up, rent them for higher amounts of money. And that's how you generate a return for your investors. People are doing it in self-storage. They're doing it in office. Like, think any type of commercial real estate where you don't want to plop down all that money yourself. You're creating a syndication, or you're creating a fund where you're placing multiple assets in that pool where everybody's joined, and there's some nice diversification plays there too. So you got to be great at raising money. You've got to be great at either running these projects yourself, or more importantly, managing the manager. The other thing that they listed that I think is super important is compliance. And that means these fall under SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission guidelines and regulations. And I've got experience with that as well, especially when I was working in the investment world and I had my securities licenses. The SEC is no joke. Like, you do not want to mess around with that. And then the last thing they had as potential options of how do you leverage your time, your capital, and your expertise is building actually an agent team or a brokerage. And that's something that we do at Elevation is we actually have, yes, we flip properties, we wholesale properties, but we've got a brokerage division at eXp Realty where we've got a handful of rockstar agents on our team, and they're out helping find business for us. They're doing business for themselves, and we're growing that network of anybody that wants to work in investing. So that's a great way that you can generate revenue as well, where you earn a percentage of the commissions because you're providing assets for those people to do more efficient business and work on the stuff that they're best at. So I think those areas of expertise, as we look at what Alex Hormozi has created, what he's built, and all these different avenues that you can hopefully take into account as you're trying to say, how do I sift through all of these, 13 playbooks? How do I come up with the way to assimilate this information so that you can create a better business for yourself, maybe a more profitable business, maybe a more streamlined business from an operations standpoint? I think that's super, super important. One of the things I just kind of thought of on the fly that wasn't in my notes, but I want to bring it up. They even have a playbook on hiring and on staffing. And I was listening to a cool podcast the other day that really talked about the small amount of time that people take to find the right people when those people are absolutely your lifeblood to running a successful business and give you that ability to lean into that leverage component because you can't do everything all the time yourself. I don't care how hard you work. I don't care how smart you are. If you actually want to grow a business, it's either lets you step out and take a nice long lengthy vacation and doesn't slow down. I think that's a big key definition of success. And so it's also from an operational and a staffing perspective that we can learn a lot from Alex Hormozi and his acquisition.com cohort of companies. I know this was a little bit of a quicker episode. It's just something that's really timely, that's been on my mind. Like I said, I just got my big giant 13 volume playbook that I'm going to start going through. So would love to connect with you folks out there. If you're consuming this content, see how we can all help one another and create that mastermind. Obviously, Napoleon Hill was onto a great piece of information when he created the mastermind. So I'm going to have this Alex Hormozi $100 million models mastermind. So connect with us and let us know how we can be of value. Again, the next or the first 5 people, I should say, that reach out to us will get a copy from my 200 book allotment of $100 million money models. And then just, dive into the use of that AI tool. It's been really, really cool to think of like, how would Alex Hormozi think and feel and do this? So again, maybe we fried your brain. Maybe you're going to have to go back and listen to this or watch this episode. But as the main takeaway is from that list that I gave you, think of the 1 or 2 things that you can do the best. As I mentioned, we've actually done all of those at any given point, but I've really, really tried over the last 2 years to focus on 3 areas and just do more of that, get better at it, and then not even think about anything new until we can perfectly refine what we're doing now. Hope you guys got a ton of value. We really appreciate you listening. As always, reach out to us and see how we can be of more service, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Elevation, elevation. To the house, man, this money for the making. We gon' get it, hustle harder every day, fam. Sky's the limit.